Okay, well, we'll just get started and assume everything's going well. Hello, everyone. My name's Keith. We're going to be building some stuff in my game here that I'm working on with someone. This is a 2D fighter game, and it's basically a corporation where you pick a company stooge and you fight your other company stooges from other departments to, get save your soul from hell, basically. A brief background on me for those who may not know me. I am a software developer here in Oahu, Hawaii. I mostly work in Ruby on Rails and JavaScript. And I've been doing GameMaker Studio here for about GameMaker Studio 2 for 9 months. But really have only kind of hit our stride with this like in the last 3 or 4. So we've made some decent progress and we're ready to, start getting the name out and see what people think. Play testing hopefully is coming, in the next 3 or 4 months. So why don't we go ahead and jump in. I'll kind of show you what we've got so far. So again, this is Corporate Ladder to Hell. Let's go ahead and play the game. So this is our select screen. We're starting with only 2 characters, building them out, making sure everything works well, and then we're going to, from there, we're going to build the rest of them. And so just jump in here. So this is what we're actually going to be working on right today, is making that select screen. And currently, you can pick one of the 2 characters and you can fight, and we can actually take damage and give damage, and we can beat the actual AI, and they can actually win too, but haven't lost yet, so so we're going to go ahead and reset that, and we'll jump back into GameMaker Studio. Now, if you're not familiar with GameMaker Studio, some of the things that you need to know about it are everything's kind of based off of here in, when I switch over to it. Everything's, most of your stuff that you're working with are based over here on the right. And most of the stuff you're going to work on is sprites, scripts, and objects. But there's other things like rooms. So each scene is basically a room, and we have our stage here that we are fighting on. That was call center, and then our player select screen, and then our menu was the thing that was, at the beginning of the stream here. Objects are basically just what they sound like. We have things like our fighters are in here. We have our marketing fighter and our CFO fighter. There's also objects that don't really relate to a sprite at all. They're just kind of a controller object where you can actually manage a lot more that's going on in the system. So again, we have this temporary placeholder sprite. It's just a flat image right now, and we're going to be replacing that to be dynamic. So if I select the CFO here on the right, she should be on the left because that's who I've selected, and then whoever I'm fighting should be on the right. So we'll be doing that today. I'm going to start by going into the code here. So GameMaker Studio, like I said, it has objects, and each object has these what they call events. So if we go into loading screen, we have 3 events on this one. We have the create, we have the step, and then we have the draw. So step is every single frame this happens. And this is basically just like we need to update state, we need to change how something looks and stuff. Draw is the actual drawing of the object. So if I'm actually dynamically drawing a rectangle or text on the thing, this is where that would go. and create happens once at the very beginning of the game. As soon as it's loaded, this happens once and never again until it's removed and then added to this thing again. There are multiple events. There's like destroy, cleanup, step, begin, end, alarms. I haven't gotten into those very much. Then there's draw. Draw GUI is actually pretty nice. That's how the power bar and everything that was there, it stays stationary as far as where the camera is. Mouse events, keyboard events, and so on and so forth. So, going back into Sublime, you can edit everything inside of GameMaker Studio. I find it a little bit clunky, so I'd rather work in Sublime because mostly it's what I know. So here on the left here I have my draw event for the loading. This is our loading screen draw. And on the right I have our step and our create. We're going to start with the draw event, and the first thing I'm going to do is remove this draw self. And what that's going to do is that actual flat sprite that we have, this right here, if you don't have a draw event, then this automatically gets drawn by default. But if you actually create a draw event like we did, then this is not going to be drawn unless you call that draw self. And that can be useful. It was a little tricky at first to figure that out. But yeah, so we're going to prevent it from drawing that. And let's look at our create event real quick. We have basically this is going to be how long I'm going to allow this thing to sit on in front of the user, and how long it's going to take to load, because everything actually loads pretty quickly, but it's not a fighting game if you don't get the face off between the two characters and showing the stage and everything. And then we have a loaded percent, so that's how much of the time has passed. And a start time is basically, the get timer is GML's way of just starting a timer. And it basically keeps track of how long has, actually it's just what time it is at that point in like milliseconds or something. And then text alpha, I don't actually think we're going to use that, but we'll leave it there for now. And then if we go into our step event, so this happens every frame. We're going to, our loading time is another variable that we're setting here on each frame. So actually we could go ahead and make that a var. If you don't have the var, then it becomes kind of an instance variable, and it's accessible like everywhere on this actual object. And since we're replacing it every single step, there's really no reason to keep it actually, no, we're probably going to be using it in the draw event, so we'll probably keep it there as an instance variable. So what this does is it takes the current time at this step, at this frame, and it subtracts the start time, and that's how long has passed since we created this object. The next steps. Now these are all in place. That's how it knows to move on to the actual fight. So actually, if I go ahead and do this, and we'll put back our draw self, and everything's good there. And if we actually test this, this screen will never go away. Oh, make a liar out of me. Oh, you know why? Because I have to actually reload it. Funny thing about compiled languages, you need to compile them for them to actually work. Okay, so back into here, we select, and now it should never go away. Yes, so it's just going to stay there forever. So we'll go back to our GameMaker to Sublime, and we'll take away the draw self. and we'll put our step stuff back in. So the first thing that we need to do is I need to draw, I want to have a black background, and then we'll load everything on top of it. So I'm going to start with draw rectangle. This takes a number of arguments, basically start x, start y, end x, and end y, and then whether we want it to be an outline or solid. So I'm going to do 0. And I'm going to do 0. And then I have a couple of constants, and it's view, if I could type, port width. Apparently my Mac does not enjoy having all the screen recording running. And then I'm going to view port height. And I can show you them. They're in macros. So this is basically just the dimensions of our actual game, like the camera actually, because our actual stage, you scroll to the left or the right based off of where the characters are, but this is the actual viewport of the game. So, and then we're going to change. We're going to make this false. And one of the weird things about GML is that you don't, so I'm drawing the rectangle, but I don't tell it like what color or anything like that, and you have to do that. You basically set what the GameMaker Studio is going to use for a color like at some point, and then anything after that is going to use that color. So you basically just have to keep managing your colors, make sure that you don't rely on, oh well, this color was set previously type of thing, because you never know what's going to run before it. And we do this by calling draw set color. And they have a bunch of like named ones, but you could also use RGB rather. I'm just going to go ahead and set it to black. And let's go ahead and try to run this and see what it does. We're going to select our player, and we get a black screen. That will go away. Cool. That's all we wanted. I'm going to reset and go back to Sublime. So now we got our black backdrop, and we don't have to worry about anyone being able to see what's going on behind this loading screen. We're going to go ahead and we are going to start building our actual thing. And I think we're going to start by adding this sprite here in the background. So if you look at this flat sprite that we have, the very background is this cubicle scene. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that. And the first thing we have to do is create a sprite for it. So the sprite is kind of like an object that contains an image for you, but also handles animation. So it's like you can have multiple frames and set different there. But it's just how you put images in the game, and then GameMaker Studio knows how to actually work with them. So I'm going to go ahead and import. I'm going to go to the image that I was given, and we're going to put it in. So importing automatically sets its dimensions, and that's pretty much all we need to do besides name it. So I'm going to do call center verse background, and we're going to hit enter. And now that we have that, we can also draw that sprite. So we do that in our draw event. We're going to do draw draw sprite, and this takes the name of the sprite, which we just called something ridiculously long, and then it takes it wants to know what image, like frame, that you want to start with, and I always want to default it to 1 unless there's some specific reason to not do that. And let's make sure that I'm not missing anything. Draw sprite, and then it wants your X and your Y. So we're going to go ahead and go back to here and look at our temp loading. I'm pretty sure that the sprite starts at the top and the left, and we're just going to cover it with white later. So let's go back to Sublime and keep doing that. So we'll do 0 and 0. And if we go back to GameMaker Studio and we run it, smoke them if you got them. And 3. There we go. Okay, so we go ahead and start, we pick our person, and we have our image. So that is quite big. We might need to shrink that down. Or maybe it's fine, actually. We'll add in the white and on the top and the bottom, and we'll figure that out. So now that we've got that, and these get added to these get added to our screen, our canvas, as they get added to in the code. That's synchronous, so we can just keep going. Now that we're putting the next layer on top, is the 2 white bars. They'll go right on top. So let's do another draw set color, and we're going to do C white, and then we're going to draw some rectangles, and we're going to, this one's going to be the top one. And actually, let's look at our sprite here, and it looks like it comes down about 1/4 of the screen. So we're going to use some percentages on this. So I'm going to have to set some vars. Var top XX equals, now we have our view port height variable. So we're going to take that and we're going to divide it by 4, and that should, and the actual canvas is drawn, X goes across, so from left to right that goes up, and then Y goes down again. So it starts at 0 and goes down to our viewport height, which is 1440. So we're going to actually divide that by 4, and that's going to give us 25% of the height. And so we're going to say top X, and we want this to go all the way, actually we're looking at Y here. Our end X, we actually want to be the viewport width. and then this is our top Y. And of course we want it to be solid, so we're going to set outline to false. And I'm pretty sure we can just go ahead and do the same for the bottom. We're just going to have to mess with the top Y. So viewport width is fine. Our top Y is so this is actually going to be viewport height minus top Y. So our top Y is currently 1/4 of the height of the thing. So if we want the bottom one to be, coming up from the bottom and 1/4 high, then we just need to subtract that from the viewport. So let's go ahead and give that a whirl. And I'm going to run it. Okay, so now that we're going to load it, oh no, we got an error. Viewport height is not set. That's because I probably misspelled it. So let's try that again. And if anyone has any questions, make sure to ask them. I'll try to answer them as I can. And I just want to double check that, sound is still good. So there's our bar. It does not look quite right, but we'll figure that out. And actually, I'm going to, just for the sake of us working on this thing, I'm going to actually prevent it from finishing loading. So, I'm going to also, we're going to comment that out and make sure that we're not, if we're positioning the bottom bar too high or if we're drawing the top bar too tall. So it looks like the bottom bar just wasn't positioned well. So let's go back to Sublime, and so now that we know that's working fine, I'm going to comment it out. And actually, to be safe here, because GameMaker Studio gets a little upset if you don't have a variable declared. I'm going to set that at the top, and then I can get rid of that, and we can start working on the bottom one, figure out why it's positioned wrong. So we're doing the viewport height, which is this 1440, and we're subtracting 1/4 of it. Actually, that's not correct, is it? That needs to be this top Y times 3. Let's see if that does it. If I can get over to GameMaker Studio and we run it. And it's upset again. Top Y. What did I do? Oh, that's why. We actually need this. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, let's try running that again. unfortunately, that's one of the drawbacks of write some code, compile, try it out, error, go write some more code, try it out. But you get used to it. Back into here. So there's our top bar. I'm not seeing our bottom. No, we're taking the height and we're subtracting 1/4 of it. I'm pretty sure this should work. Maybe we'll set it to a different variable just to be safe. Call it top YY just to make sure this is... Oh, because I am not understanding how this thing works. So I wanted to the top X or the top Y to be this new variable. And then this needs to be viewport height. There we go. Run it again. There, it's on the bottom. Looks good. Let's go back to Sublime, add our top rectangle back, and try running it again. It should look the way we want it. Now let's actually look at the page. So that's looking like what we need there. So let's go back to GameMaker Studio and look at our original sprite. The next part, let's go ahead and draw this text here at the top. The marketing and CFO, that text is going to have to be dynamic, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So let's go back to Sublime. And we're going to draw some text. So draw, set, color. Going to turn it back to black. Draw, set, font. Now fonts are kind of set up as an asset here. So you do, I didn't actually go over it before, but we have some fonts set up. I think I'm going to try the font main. I think that one's actually rather small. Let's try logo. Oh, that one's ridiculously big. That one's not bad. 45. Yeah, let's do that. So that's menu font. And it found it there. And then we're going to draw text. And to position it, I guess we'll just start with view port width, if I can spell, and we'll divide that by 2. So the start of our text will be in the center, and then for our where we want to put it on the y-axis, I'm going to actually create a variable. we're going to need it somewhere between the absolute top, so 0, and the bottom of our white bar, which is that, and actually maybe I should set these two different variables. So hello. And we'll go ahead and declare our text Y up here too, just to get it working. Go back down to the bottom. I'm getting some serious lag. Thank you, OBS. So that should now use the bottom Y, and then that way we don't override our top Y, and I can use that in our positioning of this. So we're going to do top Y divided by 2, and we're going to subtract. If we go back to GameMaker Studio and that font, we have it set to 45, so I'm going to do 45 divided by 2. And real quick, that's 22.5, so we'll just do 22. But not there. And so this will be text Y, and then we have to set our string. And if we go back to GameMaker Studio and look at what our thing wants us, it says customer service floor. Okay, so the customer service floor is actually going to be dynamic, but we haven't built in multiple stages yet, so we'll go ahead and hard code it for now, and then that might be a later string. And let's see what this does. Okay, so it gives us the text, and it's kind of positioned where we want it. We need to move it over to the left there based off of how long this is. I think the font is a little small. So we'll go ahead and go back to this, and we'll start with positioning it properly. So we don't need to do that anymore. So text X is going to be that, and then we're going minus. And GameMaker Studio has a function that we can use, and it's string width. It magically, based off of the font that you selected and the actual string variable, call this stage name equals, we'll put that there. And we'll go ahead and add that to the top too. Stage. So it's going to know how wide that that text is based off the number of characters and the font that we've selected, or we currently have in that draw set font. So we're going to divide that by 2 as well. And then we're going to string stage name, rather. And no longer using this, we're going to do our text X. And back to GameMaker Studio, we'll run it. There we go, we got it centered. And the nice thing about using that that string width is that we can actually change the font and it'll automatically update. And actually, to tell the truth, if we really wanted to be good about this, and since we're going to change probably the height of our font too, we should probably use that too. So string height, and we'll stage name, and we'll divide that by 2 as well. And just to make sure this works properly, and we'll probably be switching out the font anyway. We're going to probably try which one's larger? Arial large, that's 80, and the other one I think was 90, so we'll try that. This is going to be super big. So how's it going out there? Everyone enjoying their Saturday? That's only slightly too big. I'm not a big fan of the super bold, but we'll just add a new font then. And so we'll actually duplicate this one. And we'll call it font verse stage. And Arial is fine. We're going to set it to regular, and I'm going to tack it down to maybe 75. We'll go ahead and actually we'll leave that one open because I might have to tweak with it again, and we'll also open back up our loading so we can reference that. So font verse stage, and that should go ahead and we'll see what that looks like. I swear the compiling gets slower the longer I work on this thing. Could it be adding more code? Yeah, that's not too shabby. Let's it might be still way too big. And it does need to go to second line, which is we'll handle in a second. Let's see if we can cheat there. I think there's a draw set F align. Oh, it's H align. And we'll say, oh, what are our options here? Center. Gee, I might have to actually Google that. Draw. H align. Do we still have, yeah, I need to remember to kill the yo-yo runner, which is actually running our game between. It kills my frame rate. Okay, so it looks like, oh, it's actually a variable, not a string. So if we go back to Sublime, it's actually C center. And for those of you who may actually care, their documentation in this is actually pretty good. You just need to kind of know what you're looking for. But that's their documentation right there. And looks like we got our new font, so let's switch over to GameMaker Studio and let's start the build. Okay, so loading C center. Did I? Oh, that's my bad. It's not C, that's for color. It's actually FA. It stands for font align. So let's take a guess. Do we think we're going to get a \n in our text, or is it going to know I need a new line by that? I honestly don't know. Huzzah! And I think the font align messes with, or it's probably the new space messes with our positioning on this. So actually what we're going to do, I'm going to take that out, let's actually see what I'm doing. Instead of having this in here, into this variable, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take it out of our stage name string to begin with, so we can get our width and everything properly. And then I'm going to do stage name plus equals, and then I'm going to add our string on it. So I'm pretty sure that will do what we want, as long as it doesn't. Since it's a compiled language, I'm wondering if maybe it's like, oh, well, you tacked it on before, so why don't we go ahead and, or you tacked on this string afterwards. Maybe I'll just figure that out for you. Boy, that would be kind of annoying, but we'll see. And try running it again. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what it's doing. But we have our, I think we just might have to manually hard code in a... What if we do this? Let's see if that does. So we're specifically getting the value first and setting it to a variable. So stage name, and then our x, replace this with that new variable. Well, here's hoping. I really don't want to have to hard code that. Did that just get worse? Oh my. Oh, we still have to divide it by 2. Amateur hour. Okay, well, let's I guess quickly run that and see what that fixes it. When it comes to actually creating these views like this, this type of thing is actually where most of my time is spent. And it gets a little tedious, but hopefully we'll get to the animation parts here soon. It is still kind of weird there. And we're viewport width divided by 2, and then we have our stage name width. I'm still pretty suspicious that it's it's mutating this after the fact because we're compiling it. And we'll do global stage So I have a thing set up so that if I set a global variable of debug, it'll actually put this in the UI. It's been actually very helpful. $796 across the board. It's down here in the very corner. Okay, so I'm going to figure that out at a later date. We're going to go ahead and kind of tweak this. We know Let's just go by 4 and see if that, because that'll keep it somewhat dynamic still. That's a little better. Let's do 6. Okay, well that's probably good enough. Well, I'll have to fight with that later. But to keep things moving along, what's our next thing that we need to do? We should probably go ahead and get these player sprites in here. If I go to, I'm going to add, let's see, where should we put these stages? We'll put them in UI. We'll add a sprite. We're going to go verse, and this will be marketing. We're going to import an image. There's our marketing. Thing looks good there. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing. Duplicate. CFO. We'll import our CFO image. So now we can draw, get back to here, draw sprite, and we're going to verse marketing. We want it on the first frame, and our X position, we're going to set him to the left just for now, and we'll say, 20 for a margin. It's actually probably going to want to be like 40. And let's actually go back and look at our image. So it looks like it can go straight to the top there. So we'll just do 0 for that. And then we'll duplicate that, and CFO, we're actually going to do, this one gets a little trickier. I'm going to actually we're going to need our viewport width. We're going to need to subtract our margin here, which is 40, and also our sprite width. So sprite width, actually, see what the old Google says about this, because a lot of times you call it on object. Oh, it's sprite get width if we are just using a straight sprite width is actually an attribute on the object, and this is the function to actually get it from a sprite. So we'll do verse CFO. So it'll get us the width of that sprite, and then it'll add our margin on, and it'll subtract all that from the viewport width. And So that should be VS Sprite X. And yes, so the top can be 0 as well. So let's see what that looks like. Hey, that's not too shabby. So we're going to have to draw the white box at the bottom there after. So let's go back to here. It actually looks like, because her sprite, yeah, it looks like her sprite doesn't have the arm going all the way off the screen. We're actually going to need to give her a margin top a bit. I'm going to say that's probably another 40 pixels. How about off of the sides? We can probably go up to like 80, it looks like. Yeah. I'm going to also set variable to, we have it at 40 right now, I'm going to set it to 80 on the X, and just for good measure I'm going to go Y padding, set it equal to 40. And then here, change these to X padding, and we're going to change this one to Y padding. And while we're in here, we'll go ahead and draw this bottom rectangle after the fact, after this. Actually, probably wouldn't even hurt. No, they go over top of the top bar, so we'll leave that where it is. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not switch you guys to see the changes I made. So, add these two variables, X padding and Y padding, and that way since we're using X padding in multiple places, we don't have to keep changing it in multiple places. I set them to where we were doing 40. Now I added this Y padding, which is 40 for our CFO on the right. And then I also moved our bottom bar down later in the code, so it will get drawn later. And if we go back to here and we run this, so it is going to get a little weird, because when we go to add these verse screen people dynamically based off of which character the player selects, looks like their X position or their Y position is going to be a little different. Oh wow, that's not good. Our bar is completely gone at the bottom. No, it's not. I know exactly what's going on here. Nope, you guys didn't get to see that too. Let me recompile and show you what I saw. Okay, so it's not that it's missing, it's that whole draw set color. The last time we set color was black, so that's what's going on there. So I'm going to go ahead and quit this. I'm going to go back to Sublime, and we're going to do, let's see, yeah, I'm not a big fan of how they handle colors in this, but it is what it is. So we're going to set that to white. And so, yeah, as I was saying, because of each sprite for the verse screen is kind of set to a different, like the marketing's arm goes off screen, so it's okay to set him to 0 on that. CFO doesn't, so we need that padding. I think we can handle that pretty easily, but just so we all know that that's going to have to change. All right. I mean, that's looking pretty good. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. So now gets to be some of the interesting parts. Actually, to tell you the truth, probably the best way to handle verse marketing being different than CFO as far as how the sprite is to just make the sprites the same height and move the actual contents of the image down. So marketing is 1214 and CFO is even taller. So we just need to add padding to the top of her. So we'll go to resize. Sorry, let's get you. So he's at 1214, so he's actually shorter image than her, but he has that kind of padding at the top there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add padding to her on the top. And I'm going to go to resize canvas. We're going to click down, so anything that we add to the top of this is actually going to be added to the top. And I'm going to go ahead and just add 40, because that's kind of what we figured our thing would be. So I'm going to hit apply, and that gives us that space there. And we're going to go back to Sublime, and then I think we can set her back to 0. And we'll run this again. So how are we all enjoying this so far? Is this kind of interesting? Am I moving too slowly, too quickly? And switch back to this. Enter. Yes. It's all coming up Millhouse. So that's really nice. Oh, it looks like we have... Oh, no, that's just the size of the window. No. We'll figure it out. And back to Sublime. I want to make sure, I'm seeing a black bar at the top and the bottom, so I just want to make sure that we're not positioning something the wrong way. I'm going to use my debugging color, which is always lime. It's the best of all the really obnoxious colors that you can't miss. I also like to use salmon, this really disgusting pink color that in conjunction with lime just absolutely destroys the eyes. Okay, so it must have been all in my head, because we are not seeing lime. Let's go ahead and quit that, go back to Sublime, and we're going to go back to black on that one. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll work on making it so that the game is smart enough to know who to put where. And we're going to have to go into GameMaker Studio. Actually, no, we can stay in Sublime. So actually, why don't I go ahead and kind of show you what I was thinking there. So when you're working with objects in here, you can actually set variables or attributes on these objects before they actually get instantiated. And if I can find, so they have these variable definitions. And I already, I set one up for the marketing here for name. We could add another one and tell it for Sprite. And then we tell it, it's an actual asset. It should be here, or resource is what they call it. And then I would pick it. So we would go to, I think, stages. Nope, where did I put that? I think I put it in UI. Yeah, so then we could select that. And now all we need to do is, call VS Sprite on that actual object whenever we have it. I'm not a big fan of this because I like to do most of this stuff in the code. So I'm going to actually go ahead and remove that. We're going to go ahead and close that. We're going to switch back to Sublime. And then what I'm going to do is object marketing create. I'm actually going to put it in here. And I'm going to do can't see me do air quotes, but I'm doing air quotes here. I'm going to do a constant called verse sprite, and we're going to set it to whatever we named our sprite here. And if we go back up to sprites and UI, it's VS marketing. And that way, it's essentially the same thing. The only thing is now I can actually search for this stuff in the code rather than having to go to GameMaker and find that object and see that it's declared there. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to go ahead and CFO create. We're going to do the same thing. The only difference is this isn't marketing sprite, this is our CFO. So now, I guess one thing I should probably let you know is that when we have a fighting control object like it. We're actually in here. Maybe it's not. Oh, we have, yeah. Whenever you select a player via the previous screen, we actually set a global variable to its game matters, and it's basically which character the player selected, and then thus, by randomly picking who's left, and because we only have 2 fighters at this point, it's only ever CFO, what the computer is. And actually, if we go into init fighters, or fighting, yeah, so here I'm actually setting a global.playerInst and a global.computer CPU inst. So those are what I'm going to use to actually get our sprites. And luckily, since we have everything already set up, instead of VS marketing here, we're actually going to do global dot player inst dot, and then we call our constant, so marketing create, and it's called VS Sprite, all caps. Uh-oh, there we go. VS Sprite. here, instead of the player inst, we're going to do CPU and first sprite X. So that should just work. And we're going to just hope. No, it should work. So, in theory, if we select her, everything blows up. Oh. Spelling error. See, and just make sure I didn't do that. Yeah, replace 2. It looks good. Run it again. Can't even begin to tell you how much of my time I spend fixing typos of my own code. Okay, so, and again, if we select her, oh, now that's an issue. But this is easily fixed. We just go ahead and close that. Go back into, actually we'll go into GameMaker Studio. What we need to do is we need to have everyone facing the correct way. So we'll have them all facing to the left. So there is got to be a way to flip in here. Mirror brush. Actually, maybe I don't have to do it in here. Maybe I can just do it in here. It's probably out. I think I saw it there. That's tile. Nope. See, that's pan, mirror, flip brush. What the heck does that do? Not what we want. Guess I'll have to Google this real quick. Let's see here. Navigation, mirror. See, we have add frame, resize all frames, auto trim, flip. There we go. All frames. That's not the way we wanted to flip it. Let's try that again. Mirror. There we go. Bam. Done and done. So, now what that means though is that we're going to have to, in the code, whoever's on the computer, we need to set their image index to -1. So, GML sprite image X scale actually is what it is. So image X scale I think is another attribute on an object. I think what we're looking for X scale. Oh, okay, so what we're going to want to do here is we're actually going to, instead of just Draw Sprite, we're going to do this Draw Sprite ext, and you can see that here. And it takes some additional attributes. So it takes all the same ones, which sprite, which frame you want, its X and Y position, and then we add in X scale, Y scale. So X scale we actually want -1, Y scale we're just going to want 1, we don't want it to change there, and rotation we're just going to do 0, color we're just going to, let's see if we don't apply the other ones, if it has defaults. Sometimes GameMaker Studio gives you that and sometimes they don't. It might freak out that we don't have the additional, yep, there we go. So let's go back to here and I guess we'll just put in white and 1 for the alpha. Try it again. That color, the C white that I put in there might be an issue. I don't know if they have a transparent. Okay, well that's interesting. So let's go ahead and go back to Sublime and see what the heck's going on with that. Oh, because the X scale thing is actually a little weird. Like the position of the X, if you flip it, the position of the X is still in that original area, so I don't think we need the oh, you see, that's the problem right there. Well, it's one of the problems. So we're no longer doing that. Actually, let's go ahead and set that to a variable. See how much that helps. I think we're still going to have to mess with I think we're still going to have to find the subtract that width, the sprite width. I think flipping it keeps the origin point of the sprite in the same place as we flip it, so where it would be 0, then we flip it, it would actually be the sprite's width. So but we'll figure out if that is the case. It does look like it. So we'll go back to here and we will oh, you know what? I think we might even need to multiply that by 2 is what the issue is. Positioning is a little wonky. Kind of get used to it, but I still spend a lot of time with it, and it's kind of tedious. The good news is, what the heck is that? Okay. Let's actually think this through now. Okay. First sprite X. We set this back to 1. We may actually just need to do this, but let's actually think this through. So we'll set that back to 1, and this should viewport minus the sprite's width and then the padding. So no, that should be right. Should be doesn't necessarily mean it will be. Now it's just screwing with me. Now you are... Oh, no, we set that to be there. I'm screwing with myself. So, we have our X, we have our Y, and X scale is the next one. Minus 1. Yeah, man, it does not care for that X scale. I think we need to subtract the width again. No, we need to add the width, which obviously doesn't make any sense because we're actually subtracting the width. So we go viewport width. So I'm going to go ahead and take this sprite width off. We're going to think that's it. We'll switch back to GameMaker. We'll run it. Ugh. Are you all still with me? I know this is jumping around a lot, and it's a lot of back and forth. And that's all it was. Okay. So I guess when you do flip the sprite, it does keep the origin. It moves the origin to it flips the origin as well. So all we really need to do is flip the sprite and then subtract the padding off to the, off to the side here. So that's looking pretty good. And maybe I'll split this up. Because we're running on an hour and a half here. So I think the next thing that we'll do is, if we go back up to here, I think the next thing that we'll do is we'll add in the marketing text, and then based off of which player is selected, we'll position that, and then we'll maybe call it a day for today. And if things work out, I should be able to go ahead and stream and we can finish this off tomorrow. How's anyone up for that? Okay. Well, you don't really have a choice, so there. Okay, so this should actually be relatively easy. We're going to draw, set, font, and we're going to font. let's actually keep the same font, just and see how it looks. And then we're going to draw text, and we're going to, so that takes the X position, which this will be for the player. So we'll actually go with, we're actually just going to base it off of where the player sprite is, and then we'll add or subtract to it. So that's X padding. X, so we'll do, so let's make sure. Draw text. There, yeah. So we'll do X padding. And we will do, where is our, we'll do bottom Y plus, we'll actually need a variable to get the center of that. So that's going to be viewport width, or height rather. And we're going to, well, that'll be the bottom Y. Bottom. So we need to get the difference between those two. So yeah, I was right. Viewport height minus bottom Y. So that's going to give us the difference, and we're going to divide that by 2, so which is the height of that bar. We'll divide that by 2, and we'll subtract our, we need to get the height of our string that we're doing. So we're going to do, let's actually just add another variable. Player name equals, we'll do global, we'll use our player inst.name, and we'll do the same for CPU, change to CPU. And if you remember, oh, I am terribly sorry, guys. So I'm starting to position or add all this text in. So we're setting our color again. We're setting the font state, or the font again. And we are getting our name of the whoever the player select and whoever the computer is. And if you remember right, when we go, I was showing you the on the actual objects here, we have these variable definitions. I have name set in here, and actually this was done like very early on when I was still kind of learning the system and how I wanted to program in it. So I might actually move this to that create event, but for right now, that's where I'm getting it from. So let's go ahead back into Sublime. So we set those 2 variables, and then I'm actually going to get the height of the text based off of that. So I'm going to do name height, let's just do name h equals, and we're going to do sprite get height, and we're going to pass it the sprite, oh, not sprite, I'm sorry, thought I looked wrong, string height, and we're going to pass it player name. So that'll get us the height of that that string, and we're going to, lost my train of thought, name h, so the height of that name, and we'll divide it by 2, and that should put it in the center there. So bottom bar center. And we'll do CPU player name. Okay, and then we're going to duplicate that. We're going to, this one is going to be the whoever the computer gets to play as, so we're actually going to do viewport width minus x padding. But that's actually not going to be all we need, because we need to get this length of the string. So we're actually going to do CPU name x equals and then we're going to subtract. I'm sure you know would be better. Subtract, and then we're going to do string width, and it's CPU name plus that. So we're going to subtract, coming from the right side, we're actually going to subtract from the viewport width, we're going to subtract the length of the actual computer name, and then we're going to add the padding onto that computer name, so it should position it properly. It'd probably just be easier to show that. So CPU name x, and instead of player name, we're going to do CPU. And switch back to here, run it. Oh, well, that's completely wrong. Let's see what we did wrong there. Oh, so we found the center of the bottom bar, but we didn't actually... so it's still putting it at the top, but like only down the amount we need to go inside the bar. So we actually need to do bottom y plus. And I'm actually going to set that to another variable. Name text y equals, and that'll be it. And then okay, we're getting closer. I think what I need to do, I think the set H line is still set to center, and that's probably throwing things off. So I'm going to get back to Sublime, and that's another thing we're going to draw set H align, and it's going to be FA left. See if that fixes it. I think the computer's instance is still going to be, that text is still going to be a little off, but I'm thinking we'll have to set it to right for that end. Actually, that looks pretty okay. Let's go ahead and compare it to our image here. So yeah, we're going to want to move it in a bit. Let's see. We're going to move it in a bit. That needs to be bolder text, so maybe we'll go with that Arial font that was pretty bold. As far as the... Yeah, let's go ahead and move it in. I think the next step is that. So CPU player name will actually just, I think I might just use that X padding, which is 80 if you remember correctly, if I remember correctly. And we're actually, for the CPU side, we'll actually be subtracting that. But for the player side, we're already using X padding, so we'll multiply that by 2. Also, let's check our fonts. What we're using now is the verse screen, right? The verse font, yep. So, go back to our fonts. Font verse stage is 75. Font Arial is 80 and bold. I think maybe we'll just give that one a whirl. Oh, we already have. Might be too big of a font, but we'll see how it looks. Oh, I think we need a lot more padding than that. I don't want to go too high because we'll also depending on the name, the length of the character's name, it might get a little wonky. So let's go ahead and keep it ×3 for the player, and then ×2 for the, because we have the offset. It's just how we're actually setting it up. Yeah, I think that looks good. I still have to tweak with that customer service floor. Now that everything's in place, it's actually making me look at it and be like, I gotta change that. But yeah, so we've been going for an hour and a half plus here. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stop the stream here, and I'm going to pick up tomorrow, maybe around the same time. I'll tweet out when I'm going to be doing this again. If you don't follow me already on Twitter, I'm at sparkmasterflex.com, and I will tweet out a reminder that I'll be streaming tomorrow, and we'll hopefully finish off some of the animations here That's kind of where the fun will come in. So we just had to do a bit of a trudge. I didn't think it would take this long. For anyone else who doesn't follow me on Twitter, yeah, go ahead and you should do so. All those who I actually know who are watching, I will remind you tomorrow. Okay, well, thanks for sticking around, guys, and hope this was interesting and or fun. And I shall talk to you later. Bye.